皆さんこんにちは。タッチベースの野村です。今回のテーマは英語の決まり文句クリシェ使用前に知っておきたい4つのことということで、おなじみのスペンサーとのインタビューの様子を流していきたいと思います。またタッチベースの記事にて実際に使えるクリシェ表現22選もまとめておりますので、そちらも合わせてチェックしてみてください。これまでと同じく音声は英語です。日本語のスクリプトを見たい方はタッチベースの記事をチェックしてみてください。それでは本編どうぞ。
Today we're going to talk about cliche. 4 key takeaways here. The first one being that cliche is an overused or stereotyped expression. Key takeaway number 2 is that in conversation, cliches are used when a speaker doesn't want to talk anymore about a topic, generally speaking. And we'll talk more about that later. The third key takeaway is that popular advertising cliche, which we'll get to in a second, is very easy to spot. But plenty of cliche exists in the business world, but people are less familiar with it, so it can be harder to identify. And the fourth takeaway here, sort of judgments on it, is that cliche is not inherently bad. There's places and times where it can be very useful, inconvenient, but in a business setting, and especially in a setting where there's value and money involved, use of cliche in conversation or writing may represent a lack of diligence on behalf of the speaker at best, and at worst, cliche is our evidence that the speaker is in fact trying to hide something. Let's get into it a little bit. Maybe you've recently seen a car commercial that uses words like rugged and tough to describe the car. Or maybe you've seen a cleaning product that, quote, leaves the room sparkling or does a deep clean. Now, when I see these types of commercials, I feel that they may be a little bit dishonest. I question the product. I say, well, what does a tough car actually do? How does the room actually sparkle? And the reason for that is because I've seen many, many, many commercials for many different products, and they all say the room is sparkling or the car is tough. So these are very common examples of advertising cliches. And to be a little more specific, this is from dictionary.com. Cliche is a trite, stereotyped expression, a sentence or phrase usually expressing a common thought or idea that has lost originality, ingenuity, and impact by long overuse. So the first time someone ever described a car as tough, it probably had some effect. And the first time I saw such an advertisement, I was probably similarly impressed. But like I said, because these types of products are ubiquitous and the ways to describe them are very similar, and most people have been watching these kinds of commercials for their whole lives, it's pretty easy to spot the cliche. If every company's model of truck is tough, then the word itself loses value and meaning. So it's easy to poke at advertising because we all know it. However, there's lots of cliche used in daily conversation that's much harder to recognize. There's lots of cliche in business too, and it's harder to spot because people don't often enter the business world until they are adults. So there's just simply less time to be exposed to these kinds of things. So let's start with talking about conversational cliche. Conversational cliche is a cliche used in everyday conversation, and I've learned to call these things thought stoppers. A thought stopper is a lazy phrase that's commonly used to end a conversation. Often when the speaker knows that so in a business setting, and you know you're in the losing side of an argument, you want to end things quickly, move on to a different point. There's a number of these phrases used. We could spend a lot of time talking about each of one of them, but I've picked out a few that I feel are very common. So the first one I want to talk about is the phrase, "It is what it is." You'll hear this phrase all over the place. When I hear this phrase, when someone does not want to examine why something the way it is, this cliche is used when someone is no longer interested in pursuing a topic or is unwilling to examine the reasons for something. For example, we went to the trade show, but we only managed to get three leads. It is what it is, So here, the speaker is mitigating their failure with an appeal to a general truth that may or may not be real. In this case, the speaker is assuming all parties understand a general knowledge, something That is something like at trade shows, everyone gets a few leads. It can be very hard to ascertain the truth of something like this, especially if you're coming from another culture. And if the speaker claims to be an expert, can further sort of make this more difficult. When I hear something like this, I would be inclined to distrust that person if they used a cliche, even more so if they were in a different field that I was not an expert in myself. That's one sort of example, and there's several caveats around this. One is that, you know, if you and your business partner have been working together for 20 years, or not even, just a few years, it is what it is can be an easy way to sort of sum up a conversation that both of you already know how it's going to end, right? So if you've both been working on tariff issues for 6 months in a project, and you both have all the same information, you might use it as what it is to sort of talk about a situation or set of events that both parties know a lot about.
Right. So I think when you speak to someone who doesn't know about you, you may be careful about like using this. It is what it is.
I would definitely be cautious, especially if you're dealing with a business partner who you're hoping to have a long relationship with. You want to invest more time into the conversation. Just a quick on cliche phrase like "it is what it is" can have a point. If you find yourself at a networking event, or actually with a bunch of family members, for example, who don't share any of your business expertise, they're not interested. If you're there for a different reason that's not business, and you don't want to explain your specific field of science or business technology or whatever to the other party, you can use cliche, and it's actually a pretty easy way to get around boring everyone in your conversation circle at your family dinner. So there's a few more conversational examples of conversational cliche. Here we go again. This is used to describe a predictable situation, which usually has a negative connotation or a complaint. Oh, the boss just called. Here we go again. It's going to be 45 minutes of talking about something unrelated. Another phrase very similar to "it is what it is" "that's just how it goes." Again, it appeals to a certain truth that if you're in the know, you know, and if you don't, you don't. We move on to business world cliche because this is sort of important, something I want to talk about. It's much more similar to the tough truck or the deep cleaning product that you'll see in advertising cliche, except it's just simply harder to spot because, well, the business world is often changing. So new words and phrases are always coming into use. And like I said, you don't necessarily enter the business world until maybe you're even in your mid-20s. So here's a few examples of powerful sounding words that actually have their meaning, I believe, to have been significantly diluted, especially in recent years. And the first one is innovation, or an innovative product. Innovation was originally akin to revolution, a new product that would dynamically change the markets. But now innovation or an innovative product is so commonly used that everyone who has simply a new product suddenly has an innovative product. It can be a real problem if you say your product is innovative when in fact it may not be game-changing as implied with the original meaning. So a lot of people throw this thing around. I feel when I hear the word, "oh, my product is innovative," I don't actually get too excited about it. I just say, "oh, this is a product." Moving along, another overused phrase I feel in contemporary business culture is collaboration. The word collaboration, which I believe originally referred to two quite independent parties working together for a common goal. However, collaboration has come to define almost kind of any business relationship. I don't think a company collaborates with its suppliers, or I don't think departments within companies collaborate with each other. They can certainly work with each other, but I think a collaboration sort of implies almost radically different parties that would normally not have much to do with each other. I worked in sort of startup culture, and like every time someone had coffee together, it was a collaboration. Another important business cliche that I want to get to is referring to customers as partners. And this is something I did too. I'm totally guilty of this, but I actually think it's not a good idea. Similar to collaboration, I believe a partner has traditionally meant a business, that supports each other in a very, very critical way. But recently, in an estimate to make customers and maybe less important suppliers more valuable, the meaning of this word partner has been extended to anyone who has a business relationship with each other. And all of that's technically true, but I think a lot of those words lose their meaning.
Yeah, and I think sometimes some people use partnership as a way to decrease the amount of payments to your contractors.
Well, yes, that harkens back to the other sort of definition of cliche. You use a cliche to sort of cover up something else. I call it a partnership, but really I'm, sort of getting free labor. Anyway, moving along, business ecosystem is another one I sort of want to get to. Now, when you say the business ecosystem, it sort of implies an awareness that the market is complex, likening the business world to the natural world, which is a fair comparison to a degree, I believe, to treat the market like a living organism. It's not exactly a dangerous cliche, but I think it implies that the company using the word business ecosystem is fully aware of the aspects, or maybe even all aspects of the market, which may not be so. So just be careful when people use the word business ecosystem. Why are they saying business ecosystem? Why are they not just saying markets? Moving on, impactful. You'll hear this a lot, especially with new products. The sort of cliche here is that all products want to be impactful. That's how you generate sales. Yeah, I'm not such a big fan of impactful because I think this cliche co-ops the philosophy of impact investing and other impact-oriented projects that focus on working on environmental sustainability or types of corporate governance projects, different kinds of things that really help move society forward in some way to help create a more sustainable future, etc. But a product that just merely brings change is not necessarily impactful. It's important to sort of look out for that because people will throw that around. And last but certainly not least is an oldie, but still often used quite today, and that is the cliche of business solutions. The cliche here is that similar to impactful, every type of company in the entire world brings a solution to some kind of problem. So when your company says that you bring business solutions, you are just in fact saying that you are a business. The problem with that cliche is really that if you say, if I read on your websites, we bring business solutions, it really tells me nothing about your company.
But I think the point of using the cliche is, even though it says nothing, it kind of gives you a feeling of saying something.
Well, I mean, it sounds great if you're giving a speech, or if you're at your sister's wedding and people want to know what you're doing down in Tokyo or New York City. You can say, "Oh yeah, we're an AI software company. We bring business solutions to companies like Cisco." And that's fine. But if you're trying to sell me a product, I'll say, okay, yeah, just beware. Think a lot. I mean, this goes back to sort of the basic business wisdom of thinking a lot about who you're going to be meeting and who you're talking to. And that has to change based on your situation. Potential clients and potential people who you're going to be doing business with, it's very important to be as direct and concise as possible and skip the sort of fluff, as you say.